To Wild Ginger Running, a live episode with sports dietitian Alex Cook. Hello Alex, nice to see you. So get ready with your questions. We're just going to roll the credits and the titles, and we'll be back in just a second to tell you more about Alex and get your questions answered. Okay, let's roll the credits. Hang on, here we go. Hello Alex, it's great that you have joined us here tonight. Thank you very much for coming along. And so just to give you all a bit of a background, Alex's website is called The Sports Dietitian, and she's a Salomon ambassador. You've won a ton of races, I know that Alex, and you've set a few course records as well. In particular, you came first at the Race to the Stones in 2016, that's amazing. Sixth British female at the Lavaredo Ultra in 2018. Currently training for a sub 3 hour marathon, and you've got 20 years of sports dietetics experience. You're a UK athletics coach, and yeah, so I know you've been doing a lot of running lately, and I can see a lot of medals behind you on the shelf there. So what's been your favourite race so far of the year? Just tell us a bit more about what you've been doing.
Well, that's actually, for some reason I went through a bit of a cull a few years ago, and I think I threw out a lot of my medals, which is absolutely terrible, to the point where I wasn't that bothered. So they're not all my medals, but I would say probably my best medal from this year, in fact probably last year, was winning with my club. So my club is Wycombe Phoenix Harriers, and we won the Southern's Road Relay cross country, and also we came third this year 2 weeks ago at the Southern's cross country at Parliament Hill. So I'd actually say my team medals this year were probably my best medals. Yeah.
Fantastic. So you've been doing a lot lately then?
Yeah. A lot of shorter stuff this season, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And so, obviously, you've been a nutritionist, dietetics, sports nutritionist for many years. So, can you just explain to us, first of all, why nutrition is so important with runners?
I mean, nutrition is, a lot of people put a lot of thought into their training and into their recovery, but I'd probably say that nutrition is sometimes probably the last thing that people think about. But actually, we can't really expect, I always use the analogy, we can't expect a car to run properly if we don't put the right fuel into it. And it's the same with your nutrition. And, if we're not putting the right foods, then we can't expect our body to perform the best.
Yeah, very true. And so with that in mind, I've got a really good question, first of all, from patron Guy Greatorex. He wants to ask the first question there. He finds it really hard to eat and drink on his long runs. So bearing in mind nutrition is so important. What he wants to know is what's the best way to get fuel in. He says he just sometimes doesn't feel hungry.
Yeah, it's really, really common. And actually, I'm just writing a blog about it at the moment about how you can train your gut. And, a lot of us go into exercise and we think, well, we're training our muscles and we're training our heart, and that's going to make us fitter and faster. But what a lot of people don't realise is we can actually train our gut. And, it isn't natural to be able to run and take on carbohydrate and water at the same time. If you take a non-runner and get them to run down the road whilst drinking water and eating an energy bar, nobody's going to be able to do that. So it's not actually something that naturally we're able to do. So that's something why a lot of people, and we're training our heart, a lot of people do struggle because it's not a natural thing. We've got a lot of up and down movement. So it's something we need to train. We need to train and we need to practice. And it's about, first of all, sort of finding what source of carbs is best for you. So it might be from a sports drink, it might be a gel, might be sweets, might be a banana, might be all of those things. Depending, if you're doing an ultra, you're going to want a variety of fuel compared to, say, if you're doing a half marathon or a marathon. So it's about sort of picking what your best products are and what works best for you, and then start practicing really slowly. So So if you're going to take a gel, then start just taking one gel out, even if it's like a 70, 80 minute run, and just start taking little bits of that gel in that run and just slowly sort of increasing your tolerance over time. And you can train your gut to accept a lot more carbs, because I used to be terrible years ago. I mean, I've been running for 20 years. And when I did my first marathon when I was 19, I literally didn't take anything, absolutely nothing, compared to now. I mean, I can, Lavaredo Ultra Trail, I was eating pasta, I was drinking Coke, just because over the years I've managed to train up and managed to tolerate. So it is possible, just takes patience and planning.
That's a really good answer. And so with that in mind, what do you think people should be taking with them just to ease themselves into eating on these long runs?
I mean, I think, again, it depends on what run we're looking at, really, especially with the ultras. I mean, I do tend to say to my clients that actually, if you can find a sports drink that you do like, then it's a really good basis for your fueling plan, because the sports drink will cover all three bases. You've got carbohydrate, obviously, for your energy, you've got hydration, and you've got electrolytes. So I always say, if you can use that as your base, so you're always constantly, got your energy drink here, you can constantly be sipping little bit. Then on top of that, you can add in some extra, might be gels. So I would start off and finding, a good sports drink. And there's so many makes out there now, a lot more natural makes as well, things like Active Re and Tailwind, that sometimes are a bit more tolerable than things, like the Lucozades and the Gatorades. But it's all individual. You just need to experiment.
Yeah. So do you think, say somebody, Demon Runner, one of my patrons, says that he has a problem with the distances specifically longer than 25k, a difficulty taking in calories, and you just can't while running. And around 3 hours, he says he has this moment of like dry heaving at the side of the trail, which sounds really awful, poor thing.
Yeah.
And so it resulted in his first DNF from dawn till dusk night trail in the Ardennes. So he would like some tips on how to keep taking in the calories. Is there anything you can help him with for the dry heaving side of things?
So the mistake a lot of people do make is they start fueling too late. So a lot of people start fueling or taking on carbs or water when they're feeling thirsty or they're starting to feel tired. Whereas the longer we go into exercise, actually, the harder it is for our body to process the carbohydrate and the fluid. And especially in ultras, when you've been out for sort of 5, 10, 15 hours. Because what happens is, when we're running, the blood is diverted away from the gut to the working muscles in the skin. So actually that causes a thing called sort of gut ischemia, which means that there's lack of blood flow to the gut. And actually it's that then can cause the nausea and the inability to actually process that carbohydrate. So actually, we should be starting to fuel within the first 20 minutes.
Oh, really?
So within 20 minutes of starting, you should be reaching for your first bar or your first gulp of your sports drink, and actually start early. And the same with fluid. We need to sort of don't wait until you're thirsty, because that's almost too late. We need to start taking a little bit earlier on, and then hopefully that should then get you through that sort of 3 hour point, and avoid that sort of nausea.
That's really good advice. I hope that helps you, Demon Runner, take on a bit more fluid a bit earlier. Yeah. Okay. And so sort of the opposite side then, John Gardner asks about training the body to use fat as a fuel. I know there's been a lot of kind of trend of this, hasn't there, in ultra running, that people are using fat as a fuel. So he sort of wants to know a bit more about that, and is it a myth or is it actually a real possibility to use fat as fuel?
Yeah,
just in very simple terms.
Naturally, if you're doing an ultra race, you're going to be using a lot more fat anyway compared to any other distances. You're out for a prolonged period of time, and yes, you can be taking on carbohydrate, which will keep up your blood glucose levels, but you will also be using a lot more fat because you're actually going at a much lower intensity. And so the lower intensity exercise you're doing, actually probably the more fat you're going to be using. So for example, when I did Lavaredo, there was a lot of hills, there was a lot of climbing. So I wasn't sort of working at sort of top intensity for 20 hours. And so my carbohydrate intake was good, but I certainly wasn't, up to like 50, 60 grams of carbs an hour like I might be in a marathon.
Yeah.
so naturally doing ultra distances, you are naturally using more fat as fuel compared to your shorter distances. So I probably wouldn't worry too much and try to train that, because your long runs, if you're going out for 4 or 5 hour long runs, then that's already naturally starting to train that. I mean, some people do like to train fasted, which basically means, say for example, getting up in the morning and running on nothing, because you're running on very low, as we sleep, our muscle glycogen, which is our carbohydrate stores, deplete naturally overnight. And so obviously then if you're getting up and you're going straight out for a run, you're depleting those stores further and you're starting to use more fat. But there's never this sort of, people always think there's this classic sort of changeover of, I'm using carbohydrate, suddenly I'm using fat.
Yeah.
Always sort of be working sort of in synergy together, but obviously depending on intensity and how you feel will depend on how much fat and carbohydrate you're using to fuel that exercise.
Yeah, so it never just switches. You're always using a bit of carbs to use up the fat. That's what I heard anyway. You have to have a teeny bit of carbs there to metabolize that fat anyway. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that, unless you're sort of potentially in that sort of, sometimes we see in that, marathon situation where you might suddenly sort of hit that wall, where you do run out of glycogen stores. But that's unlikely to happen in an ultra. I mean, anything's possible and it could happen, but you are working at a much lower intensity in ultras. Most people, if you look at the elites, obviously they're absolutely storming it, aren't they, if they're doing 50Ks? But if you look at us normal morsels, then they're working at much lower intensity, so just naturally using more fat.
Yeah, okay, so it will come naturally. Don't worry, everybody.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And then we have a very interesting question from Simon Gerhardt, who's also a patron. He says he's taking on the Endure 24 Ultra in June, and he's aiming to run 75 miles plus. Wow. But the race format is actually a 5-mile loop, and they have this pit stop at the start and the finish line, and he's going to have this support crew who can prepare and hand him food as he passes by. Well, that sounds like luxury, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
So he says he would love to hear your tips and advice on nutrition to keep him going over the 24 hours. And also he wants to know a bit about how his needs might change as the hours tick by. So what would you recommend?
I mean, really, sort of ultra fueling is something that you can't always predict. Is anyone that's done ultras, you will know that if you have this beautifully formulated plan, and I've done it myself, I did it last year for Lavaredo, I planned every checkpoint, every hour, and by checkpoint 2, it was out the window. Really, you can't really predict these things. And I would have a loose plan of what you're going to do. So potentially, have a loose plan of knowing what sports drink you're going to potentially have, what products, and just make sure, I would just say, just have a variety of foods, because again, running for that long, you don't know what you're going to be craving at certain points. And, I'm vegetarian, and when we got to, I'm trying to think, we got through the night, so the sun was coming up, and we got to the top of the first climb at Lavaredo, and it was freezing cold. The sun was coming up, it was beautiful, but there was this hot broth at the top. It was a meat broth with pasta, and I thought, you know what, I just need it. I need to have that to warm up. And I don't even eat meat, but my body just needed it, and I need to get through. I need to just sit down to this lovely warm. So, you need to be open-minded. You need to think about, if you have done ultras before, you probably have more of an idea of what you like and what does agree with you. But probably like later on, you can't go through 24 hours on just sort of these neat sugars. I reckon most of us can probably manage like 3 or 4 hours of sort of taking the gels and stuff. But after that, you want savoury stuff, you want a bit of protein, you want a bit of fat and salt, things like crisps, don't you? And so, as you go on, you probably just want something that's going to fill up your tummy a little bit more. Into the night, I would definitely sort of look at caffeine. So, for example, if you know that Coke is something that works well for you, I would maybe save that for, maybe 2 o'clock in the morning, because that's pretty rotten time, isn't it, when you're running, when you start to get really tired. So sort of save your best bits up for the time you think you're going to be struggling the most. So if you do use Coke, save that for like sort of that 2 o'clock in the morning when you're going to need that boost. don't take caffeine throughout the whole thing. If you take caffeine, use it at strategic points so that you know that you've got that to look forward to, and hopefully it'll give you that boost. And hot, warm drinks as well, something that is going to give you a bit of comfort.
Fantastic. So, Simon, you should get your crew to watch this, I think.
Yeah.
I know. I totally get that with you don't know what you're going to need, because when I did my Bob Graham round, I had packed all these amazing foods. I just thought, oh, I love these foods. I'm just going to really enjoy eating these, and the excuse to eat them. And I'd packed like cheesy cheddars and hula hoops and Jaffa cakes and jelly babies and pizza as well, like a pimped up pizza with extra cheese and toppings, and it was really, really nice, that I thought. But then when I got to after about 12 hours of running, I just had a really dry mouth, and I couldn't get anything down that wasn't like without swallowing a load of water at the same time. And what I actually really needed was loads of slippery foods, so like rice pudding, like I had actually corned beef and mashed potatoes together, and then I had porridge as well. Somebody had some porridge warm porridge in a cup, and they were just sort of spoon feeding it to me as I went. I just couldn't get anything down unless it was slippery. So I think that's something that you're never going to know until you actually get there.
You don't, and that's why you just need a good variety of stuff, really, because you don't know what you're going to want.
yeah, you don't know what you're going to crave. And Dean Karnazes, who's actually been booked to speak at the National Running Show next year. So he's, I've heard that he has ordered pizzas midway on his ultra runs before.
That's incredible.
Doesn't that sound yummy though? Like a really,
it does, but it's so individual, because I know for sure there's no way I could tuck into a pizza halfway around an ultra, but I know plenty of people do. So it's just about working out what's right for you.
Yeah, and I know Nikki Spinks, double Bob Graham record holder and double Ramsey Round record holder. She's also experimented a lot with different foods, because she's had lots of stomach troubles in the past and been really sick on these long distance things. And she's found that she can do stuff like fish and chips halfway through one of these incredible ultras. I mean, she's moving at a much slower pace than anyone doing like a 50-miler or something. And she likes baked beans straight from the tin as well, tinned peaches and rice pudding again.
Rice pudding, that's a good one. The tinned fruit and rice pudding.
And that's interesting, because it is, again, it's all slippery foods, isn't it? So it's all like really easy to get down.
You don't get a lot of energy, you don't have a huge amount of energy, and sometimes, I've got very sore mouth sometimes when I've been doing ultras.
Yeah.
And so sort of chew and, get through that sort of hard food, it's quite difficult. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I made a film recently about with like Emily Forsberg and some other elite runners like Dakota Jones and Max King, and they were all saying that up until about 4 or 5 hours, some even 6 or 7 hours, they can do gels, they can do the whole gel thing and the sugar and the jelly babies thing. But after then, they all said they needed savoury food. So
totally. I think you can. I think most can sort of get through that sort of 4 or 5 hours on the neat carbs, and then eventually you get a lot of taste fatigue and you need some different stuff, and the food for ultras is not just about fueling, it's about morale, and it's about it as well. So you've got to think about that. It's not just about the fueling and the energy, it's about keeping you happy and keeping you comfortable. So that's a really important thing to remember too.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point actually. So what do you personally pack for morale then, food wise?
Oh God, you're never going to believe it. I love Snicker bars.
Oh, yum.
I love Snicker bars and also crisps. I really like when I'm doing a really long ultra. I love crisps, just the sort of saltiness and the sort of simplicity of them. So yeah, they're my. Everyone probably would expect me to say some amazing like homemade flapjack or something incredible, but no, I hate to say it. I just like my very plain, simple foods. So yeah, they're sort of my comfort foods, and also a cup of tea. I mean, literally amazing. Cup of tea halfway round on an ultra is, I think, probably for us Brits the most comforting thing you could have, isn't it? Surely. Yeah.
Do you put a load of sugar in it as well, like to
make it? I
really...
remember actually in the Snowdonia Ultra I did. What was it? 2017. My husband was meant to meet me at a certain point with a cheese sandwich, so just plain white bread, cheese, and a thermos of tea. But instead of being at the checkpoint, he decided to run halfway up Snowdon and meet me up there and then run down. And I said, so how's this going to work? Where's the thermos and the sandwich? He said, it's down there in the car. So obviously I didn't get that, but the guy I was running with just had black coffee at the checkpoint and loads of sugar in.
Oh,
and that was incredible.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a totally different drink, any hot drink with sugar in, but you just need it on days like that. Yeah. Brilliant. So that's interesting. So we've covered what types of food we might want to take and the timing of it all, and we've also covered a bit about the morale of food as well. So now I'm going to go on to a slightly different topic, and that's sort of around. It's a bit of a tricky one, I think, because I don't think we should sort of be concentrating too much on weight and weight loss. But John Gardner wants to know that he wanted to lose a bit of weight for running. He's plateaued 9 kilograms shy of his long-term weight loss goals. So have you got any advice for people wanting to lose weight and still be okay at running? Because you can't really lose weight and have
it's obviously very difficult, because obviously without knowing the person and what his situation is, it's obviously very difficult to comment exactly on that. But I always take, if I do have clients that do have that focus on weight loss, I do really try to get them to focus on the fact that, their performance is the most important thing. And actually what I do see is that people that are trying to lose weight tend to cut their calories so drastically and so much that, they're not losing weight. And that's simply because the bodies are very body is very clever. And if the body doesn't feel like it's getting enough energy, then, it will slow things down to sort of compensate for that. I do think sort of just eating sensibly, making sure that you're not restricting too much, and, just eating sort of lots of sort of low GI, having low GI carbs at your meals. Obviously not too much if you're trying to lose weight, but lots of vegetables, lots of protein. And actually eating sensibly, without restricting, because the idea is that, you want to be able to fuel your training and be able to train hard. But also sometimes, maybe changing your training up a bit. I think a lot of people can get into a bit of a rut with their training and doing the same things over and over again. So maybe getting somebody to look at your training plan and actually seeing, what you're doing with your training, and maybe you need to change that up a bit, because maybe that will sort of help, get a little bit of weight loss going again. But it is difficult. It is a difficult one to sort of comment on, really.
Yeah. And I would have thought, like, if you've got 9 kilograms as your sort of, you're only 9 kilograms away from your goal, you've got to really reassess that goal. Because if you've plateaued, then surely, like, the initial weight loss is really easy, but then if you're plateauing, then doesn't it tell you something about your body and the way that you're supposed to be?
You're right. You've got to look at all the other things as well. You've got to look at your health, and you've got to look at, actually how you are performing. Because if you're healthy and you're well and you're within the right parameters, with things like, you've got good blood pressure, and you're performing well, then potentially, you do need to reassess. Because I think a lot of people do over obsess with the fact that if I'm going to be lighter, I'm going to run much better. But then the caveat to that is that if you're not fueling enough and not fueling right, because you're trying to lose weight to run faster, you're not going to be able to put those efforts into your training. So it's a bit of a catch-22. You want to just sort of try and get that balance.
Yeah. Yeah, so just eating healthily rather than cutting all your calories down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And making sure you're just eating enough around your training so that you're fueling and recovering well from that training, so you can train well again the next day.
Yeah. And so to do that, would you recommend like wearing maybe a heart rate monitor watch so that you can see how many calories you've burnt in that training, and then eating that?
I probably wouldn't. I think that's sort of too exact and sort of could be, get too obsessional for some people. I think I was only speaking with my coach about this today, that, we do get a little bit obsessed with data and pace and Strava, and we're all getting so stuck to our watches. And I think also when people are starting to look at heart rate and how many calories they're burning every day and how many footsteps they're taking, it sort of takes away from actually why we're doing our running. And actually I think if we try and sort of keep it a bit more simple and less complicated, then you might reach your goals a little bit more easily.
That's really good advice for sure. I just wanted to pick up a little bit more about, you said you were a vegetarian, and I think that's really interesting. There's Trackersham has said he just wants a few more plant-based recommendations for food that's easy to eat, like whilst you're doing those long-distance runs. What are your sort of go-to plant-based foods for on your long runs or on long races?
What to take whilst you're running?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not vegan, so I'm vegetarian. Well, I'm actually a pescatarian, so I eat fish. But I always think that sounds a little bit pretentious, so I always just say I'm a veggie rather than a pescatarian. But again, with vegans, there's lots of products out there now that are for vegans. At the National Running Show, there were loads of products there that were vegan friendly. So there's lots more options now for vegans, and also because it is actually becoming more and more popular to become vegan. I'm actually writing another blog about that.
Where can people find that blog?
So I'm doing one blog for fast running. I'm interviewing a GB athlete that's a vegan himself, so that should be really interesting to see how he manages it. And then my blog on what did I say I was writing my other blog on?
Veganism.
Yeah, and then I said I'm writing another blog, but I can't remember what that was about. But all my blogs are on my website, on the sportsdietitian.com. Yeah.
Okay, everybody, so head to sportsdietitian.com to read all of Alex's blogs. I was flicking through there earlier. You've got a ton of really useful information on there. So if there's anything that we can't get through during this chat, then I'm sure it will be on there as well.
Hopefully it should be, yeah.
That's fantastic. So this is a bit of a funny one. Steve Horton's just asked this question. A while ago I went to Pikes Peak and I met some crazy American people who said that they like to drink pickle juice. Which is like the juice that surrounds pickles, and pickles aren't pickled onions, they're gherkins.
Like gherkins, yeah.
So it's basically like vinegar with like loads of other bits and bobs in. And like the Americans, apparently, they just get a spoon and they just spoon out this pickle juice and they just drink it. And I had never heard of this before, and I put it on my channel, and loads of American people were commenting. And like Conrad's commented here just now, he says it's the combination of the salt and the vinegar.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, had you ever heard of that?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it's just the electrolytes from it, I assume. Sounds revolting. Sounds quite hard on your stomach, doesn't it, with the vinegar?
Yeah, it sounds hard, but they said it's also good for the Jamesons. So I don't know. I thought they were having me on, but apparently it's a big thing in America.
I don't know, but I won't be recommending that, I don't think.
Yeah, well, I was thinking maybe it's not such a big thing in the UK because we don't have the same heat issues really usually, do we? So the whole cramp thing isn't so much of a huge thing in Britain usually. Maybe for some people who sweat a lot, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm afraid, Claire, that's not something I'll pack up. But that's very interesting.
Out of my remit, not on the blog.
Yes. No comment.
No comment. Fantastic. So that's pickle juice covered. That's fine.
Tick.
It's on my piece of paper here. And then we've got somebody asking about whey protein. I'm presuming that is for recovery. Nick Brown wants to know about whey protein. What are your thoughts on adding that into your diet, or should you just be getting protein from all natural sources?
Yeah, you don't. I mean, the protein supplement industry is huge. Absolutely huge, and there's no denying, there is some place for it in some people's diet, but for most of us, we can get our protein requirements through our food. I think potentially where people maybe go wrong is that they're just not eating enough protein throughout the whole day. So for an endurance athlete, we have an increased need for protein compared to someone sedentary. So someone that doesn't exercise, you need about 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of your body weight. As an endurance athlete, obviously, because we're training hard and we need that constant repair and adaptation of our muscles, we have that increased need. So from anything between sort of 1.2 to about 1.8 grams of protein per kilogram of your body weight, obviously depending on your training load and you. But what we need to do is we need to make sure we're having that protein spread throughout the day. So with carbohydrate, we can definitely say, well, we definitely need to make sure we're surrounding our training with carbohydrate. But with protein, because this process, which is muscle protein synthesis, is going on all the time, it's a chronic process that our body is constantly, breaking down and then regenerating our cells and re-strengthening our muscles. We need to make sure we're having protein at every single meal. And if you're training harder, also at snacks. Potentially, say for example, sometimes if I'm out in the gym, going to the gym, and I've done a strength session and I haven't brought food with me, I might have a recovery shake, but I would also have carbohydrate in as well, not just protein. As runners, we need to make sure that we're having carbohydrate after our training as well, because most of us will be depleting that glycogen. So we need to make sure we're having protein and carbohydrates. So really, with regards to the whey protein, yes, if there's some reason potentially why you're not managing to get enough protein in, then you might want to add a bit of whey protein into your diet. But really, we should try and go for a food first approach where we can, because they're expensive as well. They're really, really expensive, but they can be convenient.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? They can be super handy, and they don't go off.
Because a lot of us, we're so busy. Most of us that do train, we don't have the luxury of being like a pro athlete where they wake up, eat, train, eat, have a massage, go to sleep, and do the same again in the afternoon. Most of us are getting up, rushing out, going training. Lucky enough if we get a shower or not, then we're sitting down straight at our emails. So or doing something with the kids. So sometimes convenience, if it does mean that you're going to feel better, then yes, use it. It's better than that than nothing at all.
Yeah. And do you ever make your own protein things or
Yeah, I do. So for me, I struggle quite a lot with my appetite after I train. And I don't really ever come back from any of my sessions ravenous hungry. For me, it's got to be a really conscious thing to make myself eat, because despite my job, I feel like I've got a million other things to do. So actually, sometimes getting it through liquid means is good. So what I do is I'll put about probably just under a pint of milk, a banana, and then 30 grams of oats, whisk it up in a blender and drink it down. And that's a really, really good, and if I need a bit of extra protein, I might put some peanut butter in that. It's really quick and easy and much cheaper than the processed options.
That sounds really delicious. I did that the other day with we haven't got any milk in the house, so I've got this almond milk, oat milk, and hemp milk. I put all them in a pint glass, and then I put some cherries in and a banana and some oats, and I had made a whole pint of it in the end, and it was really, really nice. And I drank it all, and then I felt really, really full. It's like I feel so full from a drink.
Well, it's because the volume, and it does make you really, really full, but. One thing I do have to say, actually, with all these sort of milk replacements, they're really, really popular now. A lot of people that come to me are having things like, your coconut milk and your almond milk. But actually, they don't really, they look like milk, but they don't actually sort of nutritionally, they're nothing like it. There's no comparison. So there's really very, very minimal amount of protein in these milk replacements. So if you are using them and you're not using cow's milk, for some examples, so you might want to add some peanut butter into that to get your protein up there, or maybe you would want to use a protein powder in there just to up the protein if you're using it for recovery.
Yeah, well, that's good advice. Yes, because I'm not vegan. I'm more of a pescatarian like you. But when you hear about the dairy industry, you just think that's horrible, and it's really horrible the way they treat the cattle and the cows, and they take the kids away and they're really upset. And I just thought, I don't want to drink milk anymore because of that. But is it really the best thing we can drink? I
think nutritionally, the thing is again, we go through these sort of phases of things being demonized and sort of shock stories and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not removing, I'm no expert on the farming industry, so I won't pretend that I am. But, from a nutritional perspective, cow's milk is. And I know there's uproar, I know there's lots of controversy on social media that I always stay well clear of.
Very wise. Me too.
Yeah. Lots of people do have very, very strong opinions, which is great, but it really... for me, I find that a lot of people exclude things like dairy without thinking of the consequence of the nutrients that they're actually missing out on. A lot of the milk replacements aren't fortified with calcium. Some of them are. But if you're on a milk replacement milk alternative, that isn't fortified with calcium and B12, then you're missing out a lot. A big chunk of very important nutrients. So we just have to be a little more mindful about where we're getting those nutrients from if we are excluding food groups like dairy.
Yeah. Would you recommend supplements to cover that kind of thing?
You shouldn't really need to. There are lots of milks that most of the milks are fortified. A lot of them are fortified. So Alpro are, and a lot of the other big brands, like a lot of the supermarket brands are. Things like the organic ones aren't necessarily fortified, obviously, to reach that sort of organic status. So you just have to sort of read labels and be a bit more aware of what you're eating. You shouldn't really need to supplement though, because also there's lots of sort of non-dairy forms of calcium as well.
Yeah.
And like green leafy veg kind of stuff.
Yeah, lots of green leafy veg. Yeah, perfect. So this might be a bit of a tricky question, but Darren Joins says he's experimenting lots at the moment because he's a type 1 diabetic. So sometimes after an hour's run, his blood sugars go up and he can't take on any carbs. He's just asking for like books or sort of places to go to find out more information about running with type 1 diabetes.
I would probably definitely either put yourself in with a dietitian and get sort of someone. It's definitely not something I can advise sort of in this sort of ad hoc manner, because obviously type 1 diabetes is clinical situation, and so I would definitely if you can either speak to your diabetic nurse, because you'll have a diabetic nurse with the NHS, or speak to your GP, and failing that, then book in. There's lots of wonderful sports dietitians out there, and you can go to the BDA to find out, which is the British Dietetic Association, or we have lists of freelance dietitians, and also the SENR, which is the Sports and Exercise Nutrition Register, which also has lots of certified clinical sports dietitians on as well.
Fantastic. That's really good advice. It does sound very specialised, that one. And also there are quite a few people sort of with blogs who have diabetes as well. I know there's one guy, he organises the Open Adventure races. He's called James Thurlow, and he's got type 1 diabetes, and he has a blog. I think it's called How Far, because he's seeing how far he can run. Before he was blogging these crazy things, like he would run like 20 miles and then he wouldn't manage it properly, and he would not have taken on enough sugar, or it's really difficult to manage at 20 miles, and then he'd just sort of fall down, and he'd just kind of collapse somewhere in it, like near a bush, and so he was just sort of experimenting and trying out new things, and he got better and better every time, but it was always a bit of a risk for him going out and just
dangerous. Not something I would advise, to be honest.
Yeah, so it might be interesting to read his blog to see some of the conclusions that he came to, so that you can avoid having to do what he did.
I think it is, but everyone's got to be really, really careful of these sort of blogs, these personal blogs, because obviously like anecdotal advice is really not something, because a lot of people are, I think, a little bit careless with their advice and what they say that they do, because just because it works for you certainly doesn't mean it's going to work for someone else. Especially something that's clinical. So, I think sort of reading these blogs for people that, suffer from the same condition can be very supportive, because obviously that some other people are going through it, and, see how they manage it. But also, to use your common sense and use that advice with a pinch of salt, and always make sure that you speak to a practitioner before you do any drastic changes in your sort of in your medication or your control or anything like that with diabetes.
Yeah, it definitely wouldn't be wise for us to start saying, do this, do that. It's a life-threatening condition. So, totally. Yeah. That's really good advice there. Thank you very much for that. Brilliant. Just having a look, there was a question here. People are going on about protein and peanut butter, and somebody's saying that they're trying to drink more smoothies every day, but the brain freeze is a nightmare. So that's quite funny. And then other people are talking they're talking about the pickle juice thing, and they're saying that somebody from UK is saying, I think that's an American joke that they think we Brits always fall for.
Oh no, really?
No, I don't think it is. I think it's a real thing.
You've dedicated a whole 5 minutes to this.
I know. Yeah, and there was a question about, I know we've covered a bit of recovery already, but is there that magic window, 30 minutes, that, you know, like the 30 minutes?
Yeah.
What's the whole time frame around recovery?
Yeah, I mean, there is. So this sort of magic window of opportunity is what we call it. Sort of comes about because, you know, our muscles are like sponges sort of after we've exercised. They are sort of primed to take on nutrients. But really, if most of us are only training once a day, you know, a lot of people actually probably only run sort of maybe 3 or 4 times a week. So actually, generally, even if you run once a day, you've got 24 hours to recover. And so really, just so long when you finish your exercise that you're eating sort of within an hour, a balanced diet, you know, then you're going to get that recovery process going. You will definitely sort of be recovered by the time you train again. You know, however, if you are training twice a day, then you really do need to sort of bank in on that sort of half an hour, and you need to be having, you know, high carbohydrate and high protein snack within sort of probably half an hour of finishing, and then follow that up with a meal within an hour. So yeah, it does exist, but, you know, I do find a lot of people, you know, as soon as they finish exercise, they're sort of there. I mean, most of us do want to have something to eat, you know, even just a snack. I mean, even though I know earlier I said I'm not hungry for a meal, but generally I'll come back and might have like a banana or, you know, a cereal bar. So most of us probably might want something when we finish, but you don't have to be sort of busting a gut to be getting that food in within half an hour, unless you're training again that evening.
Yeah, it's not the most important thing in the world. Yeah. Okay. Well, the next question is I don't know. It's a little bit of a personal question, but it's around doing long races and needing to go to the toilet. And so, how can you manage your food and your feeding so that you're not sort of caught short on an ultra, or, you know, experiencing stomach difficulties halfway through? Do you have any advice on the types of food that you might take to avoid just discomfort, I suppose, and having to go to the loo halfway round?
Yeah, so I mean, basically, you know, it is really common, and I think, you know, a lot of people do sort of get quite a lot of anxiety around the thought of, oh my goodness, what if I need a poo when I'm halfway around a run? But actually it happens to all of us. And, you know, so first of all, it's that sort of step of acceptance. So rather than fearing it, you know, I always think that actually if you say, okay, well, if it happens, then I'll just go, you know, I'll find a bush, or there might be a loo or a checkpoint, and I'll go. It's cool, it's okay. I've got loo paper with me. This is fine. I mean, obviously, ideally, we don't want to be doing it, but I think the anxiety and worry of having to go sort of makes it almost worse. But if you are sort of suffering quite badly, you know, if it is something, you know, because I do see a lot of people that basically, you know, will run and they'll go 4 or 5 or 6 times when they're out. You know, if you do suffer that badly, you know, even sort of the first step of maybe sort of 24 hours before your long run to really sort of drastically reduce your fibre intake, for example. So that's things like, you know, having white bread, you know, things like Rice Krispies instead of your Weetabix, you know, getting rid of the skin on fruit. So really, really dropping down your fibre can be really, really effective for a lot of people. But also when we're running, a mistake that a lot of people will make, you know, once you start getting those cramps, and believe me, I have had my fair share of
Me
these
too.
situations. You know, every runner has. As soon as you start getting those cramps, you automatically stop drinking and stop eating and everything. But actually, you know, dehydration can actually exacerbate the cramping, and it can actually sort of cause it. So actually just trying to keep up your fluid intake as well can really, really help. I mean, obviously taking things like gels and food probably isn't going to help, but definitely keeping up your hydration can help it.
Definitely. I've had like really bad stomach cramps on taking a gel, and I ran out of water and it was really hot. I had the worst stomach cramps I've ever had. It's put me off gels for life, I think.
And it's just, you know, if you do have it, you know, just sort of slow down, walk, just try and relax, because I do think, you know, panic does set in for most of us when that happens. You know, or try and distract yourself. So something that I used to do that I was told to do by a practitioner once was try and sort of distract myself from what you're doing. And actually, if you can distract yourself, maybe talk to someone or go with your times tables or something, just because almost, even though that situation is there, sometimes the anxiety makes it a lot worse, because we have a real strong link between our brain and our guts. So once we start worrying and panicking about it, it can almost sort of make it a lot worse. So trying to remove yourself from that situation in your head can sometimes help as well.
That's really wise. It's really interesting. You've brought in a few things that I just haven't realised about, like the link between your mind and your food. And
it's a fight or flight. It's the brain gut axis is actually, it's very, very strong. And so that anxiety can really make it a lot worse.
Yeah, it's good because you just don't remember that, do you?
No.
Fab. Okay, so there's a couple more questions. Everyone's sharing their favourite smoothies on the live feed as well now, which is really good, inspired by you. So thank you very much for that. Just a really quick question. Guy Greatorex wants to know: is it worth having white pasta or rice, or sticking to brown? Like, should you always just go for the brown?
Well, it depends, because actually, even though from a health perspective, we should be going for your whole grain, so things like, your wild rice, your brown rice, seeded bread. Obviously, whole grains are going to be sort of bowel healthy. They're going to make your bowel a lot happier. But actually, sometimes as runners, the refined sort of simple sugar carbs do actually have their place. So, for example, when you have been for a run, it's better off to have like maybe some white bread and some jam, because actually you want to get your blood sugar levels up quickly. So you want that quick boost of energy rather than a slow release. Whereas for your pre-exercise meals, to say in the morning, you want something like porridge, because you want a slightly slower release of energy, because you'll probably be having your porridge like 2 to 3 hours before you run. So it's just depending on timing. I mean, predominantly, yes, we do want to be going for our whole grains and our lower GI carbs, definitely. But the higher GI carbs do have their time and place for sort of generally during and after exercise.
Okay, so white bread and jam for during and after, and then your brown for all other times.
Yeah.
Which brings us on nicely to Conrad Anderson's question. Poor Conrad, he has seen a sort of an allergen person, and he's been told that he can't eat any grains. So not only is he wheat intolerant, he's also intolerant of any kind of cereal-based grain that has been in human existence for the last 5,000 years. So he can't even eat potatoes. So he was just wondering if you would know of any places where he could get some more advice on different foods that he could eat which don't contain grains.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is one thing that we have to be careful with, because we hear a lot of chat about people going to get sort of allergy tests, in all sorts of different ways, like looking at their hair and all sorts of unusual ways of testing for allergies. But actually, the only way you can really get a solid diagnosis of allergy is actually going through your doctor. So generally, if you do go to these practitioners that you pay quite a lot of money for, you will probably come out with sort of allergies or intolerances to things that you probably never did realise that you had an allergy or intolerance to. So again, it's very, very difficult, and obviously, like, if I could speak to him myself, then obviously I'd have a lot more advice than what I can give on here. But if you are being told that you are allergic, well, I'm assuming intolerant rather than allergic to such a massive food group, I'd probably advise him to go and actually sort of double check the diagnosis, and also go and see a practitioner, so a registered dietitian or a registered nutritionist, to actually get some proper support. Because ideally, we don't want to be cutting out whole food groups if it's not entirely necessary. But obviously, I don't know if he actually gets symptoms or reactions when he does have these foods or not, or whether he's just been told he can't have them or not. So it's a tricky one. But if you're ever unsure, just make sure you seek advice from the right people.
Yeah. Well, I'll hook him up with you after this one, so
okay,
maybe he can have a consultation with you as well.
Yeah.
It might be really handy for him. I just told him to swap ice cream for popcorn, you see, while he's watching these live things, and he was like, oh, but I can't eat the corn. I thought it was really helpful. Yeah. And just in a similar vein, actually, Wayne Reed had a question a few days ago on the YouTube channel. He says he wants advice for overweight runners. He says he's currently jumping on the keto bandwagon in order to try and shift some timber. So he says, do you have any advice for anyone in his position? He doesn't know about, like, he wants to know about, like, he did a race that was fasted and keto, and he felt fine throughout. But I guess I will start to struggle this year. Yeah, so as he builds up the distance, he's saying, should he add some carbs in, or is his body already using fat for energy? So yeah, it's a bit of a minefield.
I think you'll find, again, sort of the keto diet, paleo, all this kind of sort of no carb, high fat. I think it's something he will not be able to sustain this way of eating forever. It will get to the point where he has had enough. And, it's a natural progression, because when you do something so extreme, actually putting your body in a ketogenic state is not a natural state for the human body to be in. So then on top of that, he's demanding his body to perform in his running the way he is. So he's putting a lot of demands on his body, purely just to lose weight. He needs to not lose sight of his health and his well-being, because that is the most important thing. We want to lose weight, and it is possible to lose weight in a healthy way without doing anything too drastic or extreme. So I would advise him to slowly start sort of introducing a bit of sort of low GI carbs into his diet, probably initially around his training, so maybe like some oats before he goes out for a run, and then making sure he's having some carbs after, so that he's recovering. And just gradually start to introduce it. So I'm just getting some messages on my computer. Just start to increase it very gradually, because he can't continue that on long term.
Yeah, so you can't continue keto long term, but would you say it's useful for sort of just try getting to lose that weight initially?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a very drastic way to do it, and naturally, you're reducing calories. That is generally what it is, and your body is relying on, obviously, sort of burning fat and burning proteins to produce fuel, which the body has to work really, really hard to do. So yes, it does make you lose weight, but generally, it's a very, very extreme way to do it. And it's not something I advise at all. Mm-hmm.
So how do you advise to lose weight then? Is it just an overall calorie reduction of all food groups, not cutting one out?
Weight loss is really complicated. It's really not straightforward. And, I've worked with a lot of people trying to lose weight. So there's not one set way of doing it. The only thing I would say is, don't do anything extreme. Consider your health and consider your nutrients, because actually our body needs nutrients in food to, just for our hair to grow and our heart to beat and our, all the amazing processes that our body is going through without us even knowing. Our body is reliant on all these nutrients, and we need everything. We need a good variety. We shouldn't be demonizing any particular food. It's about just getting that balance and getting those portions right and being able to train well.
Fantastic advice there. I hope that helps you, Wayne, and anyone else that's thinking of a drastic diet or using keto as a method of losing weight. One last question from Guy Greaterex, my top patron. Thank you, Guy, for your great questions. It's quite a long question, so prepare yourself, Alex. It's a good one. As a mother, a business owner and a wife, how do you find the motivation and the time to go out there and get the miles in? He wants to know if you're organised, and he says it must be hard when your husband is gone on a tour of duty. And P.S. can I say, on behalf of everyone, thank him for his service. So thank you very much to your husband for his service.
I hope he's listening to that. I've been running for 20 years now, so I started when I was sort of in my late teens, and I'm 39 this year, so it's a long time. So for me, it is very much ingrained in part of my life. It is just something that I've always done. I certainly don't. I always say that I think my friends, when they see me at the school run in the morning dressed in my lycra, I think they all think that I'm always constantly, jogging out there, loving it and thinking it's the best thing in the world. But it's hard, and it's not always straightforward, and I'm not always that motivated. But it's just, I think for me, it's about goals. For me, it's about just having that goal, whether it be an ultra, whether it be like cross-country season, whatever that goal is. But it's also an escapism. And I think, the older I get, I've got kids, we like a bit of escapism. I always say, I'm not that stupid doing these ultras. Last year I got 20 hours on my own out on the Italian Dolomites. I mean, literally, you couldn't get better escapism from that. But no, I'm not super organised. I do work for myself, so I, manage my own time, and that's really, really lucky. When my husband was away on tour, he hasn't been away on tour for a while, and actually he left the army in September, so he's out now after doing 18 years, wow, which is incredible. But when I used to live up in Rutland, we lived on a airbase, a disused airbase, so there was like I think it was about like 5 mile airfield. So I used to put one baby in the buggy, and I would put my daughter on the balance bike and tie a rope around my stomach and tie the rope to the balance bike and push the buggy and pull the bike, and round Rutland Water as well. So I always found my way somehow. But yeah, it's just part of my life, and but it's not always easy. I don't always find it that easy, but I do it, and I do get it done.
Fantastic. Well, you appear to be doing it very well, because you're training currently for a sub 3 hour marathon.
Yeah, apparently so. Yeah, I haven't done a road marathon since 2008, because then I got into the ultras, just because I got really fed up with just constantly chasing time and chasing PBs and looking at my watch. But now I'm sort of heading towards 40, and I've got a reasonable pace. I kind of thought I need to make the most of my speed whilst I have it. So we will see. It's not live or die. I have got a lot of work and a lot of responsibilities. So if I can do it, great. If not, I'll give it another go in the autumn. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's not all about the times, is it? And it's mainly about enjoying it. And same with the food, it's about enjoying it and not eating too much of this. And
yeah, you have to enjoy it. And I think, isn't it, the moment you stop enjoying it, then you question why you're doing it. So we're not getting paid to do it, are we?
No. No. Well, sometimes. No. Yeah. Not in so many ways, but yeah.
No.
Yeah. No. Yeah, that is fantastic. So I'm just gonna say thank you to on behalf of everybody. I'm gonna say thank you, Alex. Loads of people are saying thank you so much, and thanks for coming on to Claire's program, Alex. He'll catch up later in the evening. Lots of people saying, wow, that's inventive. Really glad that you're talking about keto. So pleased to hear Alex talk about keto and the inability to sustain that long term. Simon Run saying, love the chat, so much information, such practical and useful advice. Thank you so much, Alex and Claire. So loads of really great comments there. And 50 millennia saying thank you, Alex. Guy Greater X said, love this chat. What a lovely lady. Oh, check that out. That's so lovely, isn't it?
Nice to get a compliment.
Yeah, it's lovely to get a compliment. Thank you to Guy. And yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know that I couldn't answer everybody's questions on the chat. But if you go onto my Patreon page, which is patreon.com/wildgingerrunning, you can find out how I will guarantee to answer your question to all my lovely experts like Alex here, who have given up their time to come on the programme. I'm going to put a link now to Alex's website, which is the sportsdietitian.com. So that's going to go into the live chat, and it will also go in the description under the video as well. well. So check that out. And if you do want, because obviously everybody's got really different nutritional requirements. So do contact Alex if you want her advice, like further information. She does great consultations, and I'm sure you've got room for a few more clients in your busy life.
Also, if you want to on Instagram, Sports Dietitian on Instagram, they could always sort of, maybe put a couple of questions to me on that as well.
Yeah, fantastic.
Get a few more followers on Instagram.
Oh yes, follow Alex on Instagram for sure. So just tell us all of your social, tell us all the little details.
The Instagram, I'm the Sports Dietitian, and that is my Facebook page as well, the Sports Dietitian, and Twitter, I'm diet360_.
Cool. Okay, so you're at the Sports Dietitian.
With a T-I-A-N.
Dietitian. Yeah. And then on Twitter, it is different. It is at
Diet360.
Oh, Diet360.
Yeah.
360_. Okay. Do it now, everyone. I'm just typing this to everyone. That's fantastic. And loads of people are saying, Bram Van Diemen was saying, thanks, it was very good advice, and good luck for your next challenge. Tracker Sean said, great talk, thanks Claire and Alex. Helen B said, really enjoyed this talk, learnt a lot. That's fantastic. It's just a shame they're not just there in front of you, isn't it? Because
I know.
There was like 60 people watching tonight, so that's absolutely brilliant, and like 1,000, 2,000 more will watch this over the course of the week. So yeah,
another one then, Claire.
Yeah, and sorry to just keep you for like 2 more minutes, but I just wanted to tell everyone there's a competition as well on every month. I do a competition on Wild Ginger Running for all my patrons, and this month's competition, I've just found out, the original Mountain Marathon, are giving away a £300 voucher for their clothing and equipment. You can choose whatever you want, and they're also giving you a place on the Light, which is their beginner navigation event this May, the 6th of May. And also I've got a place on Paul Hober's running training, physio training day in Nottingham in March, on March the 9th. So if you want a chance to win any of these, then go and look at my Patreon account and see how you can sign up to win my monthly competitions, usually worth about £500. So definitely worth it. So thank you, Alex, for just putting up with that small advert. And everyone's still saying really good advice, and he'll watch it again tomorrow. Lots of people enjoying the competition. So yes, definitely follow Alex on Instagram, follow her on Twitter, follow her on Facebook, and get in touch with her if you'd like a bit more detailed advice, because obviously it's very subjective for everybody.
It is.
Is there anything else you'd like to say? Like, if there's one thing that people can do with nutrition and running, like what's the most important thing that you want to leave us with?
Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. It's the most important thing. We all make it so complicated. I think these days everything is overcomplicated now. Keep it simple and keep it true to you and no one else.
Fantastic. Well, with that, I'm going to end the live broadcast. So me and Alex will still be able to chat, but we're going to end the live broadcast now. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching. And go over to Instagram, Facebook and Twitter to follow Alex now, and have a look at her blog as well on her website, thesportsdietitian.com. So see you all next week, everybody, for some gear chat. Bye.